At my brother's engagement party, my dad muttered, "Don't screw up like always." My mom stared blankly. They sat me by the kitchen. I just smiled, because I knew what was on that projector. I've known my place in this family since I was old enough to notice the way my dad's smile never quite reached his eyes when he looked at me. My name is Daniel. I'm 26, I live in Seattle, and I've always been the tolerated but unloved older brother. Colin, my younger brother, is the golden child. He could stumble through life blindfolded, and they'd still talk about how gifted and resourceful he is. It's not that I've done nothing with my life. I worked my way up from a junior coder at a startup to building my own app, one that actually got traction. My last promotion doubled my salary. But in my family, every win of mine gets brushed aside. Promoted again, my mom said last year when I mentioned it during Sunday dinner. She smiled, but her voice had that lukewarm tone, like she was congratulating a kid for learning to tie his shoes. That's nice, honey. I mean, Colin's really got some big deals coming up in real estate. He's a natural with people. It's just different. Different. That's her word for everything I do that doesn't look like Colin's path. And my dad? He doesn't even try to hide it anymore. When I showed him the beta version of my app, a platform I'd spent 2 years developing, he squinted at my phone and laughed. What is this? Just a bunch of buttons on a screen? You call that innovative? He didn't even look at me, just shook his head like I was some tech intern he'd have fired if I worked for him. Meanwhile, Colin's so-called real estate hustle is a glorified side gig. He flips low-value properties, mostly using Dad's connections, and pretends he's building an empire. Dad brags about him to everyone. "My boy's killing it out there," he'll say, his voice full of that pride I've never once seen pointed in my direction. The favoritism has been there forever, but I remember the moment I realized just how deep it ran. I was 17 when I misplaced Dad's phone charger. It was a stupid accident. He ripped into me like I'd set the house on fire. "Do you have any idea how irresponsible you are?" he yelled, pacing the living room while I stood there, blinking back anger and embarrassment. 2 years later, Colin totaled the family car, drunk, no less, and Dad's response was, "Well, these things happen. We'll take care of it, son." A hand on Colin's shoulder. A gentle laugh. No lectures. No disappointment. I stood there, wondering if we were even living in the same reality. The pattern became my normal. Every family dinner, every phone call. Me, quiet in the corner while they told story after story about Colin's latest win. I stopped trying to impress them a long time ago. Seattle has been my escape. Out here, I've built a small, quiet life. One that actually makes sense to me. I rent a modest apartment with a view of Lake Union. I walk to my favorite coffee shop every morning. I have a handful of close friends who like me for me, not for how I measure up against my brother. Still, there's a part of me that watches all of this. The hierarchy, the unspoken comparisons, and I can't help wondering what it would feel like to have my family look at me with real pride, even for a moment. But I've learned not to hold my breath. The envelope arrived on a rainy Tuesday, wedged between a credit card ad and my power bill. I almost tossed it aside, but then I saw Colin's name printed in gold script on the front. Inside, the card was thick, fancy, the kind of paper you only use when you want people to feel small. "We're thrilled to invite you to celebrate the engagement of Colin and April." It was all there in looping, expensive calligraphy. Date, time, venue, a luxury ski resort in Colorado. What made me pause wasn't the invite itself. It was the part underneath my name, Daniel plus guest. I stared at it for a long minute. Everyone in this family knows I'm single. I can practically hear Mom's voice in my head. "Have you met anyone yet, Daniel?" "No." "Maybe you're being too picky. Colin's friends are all settling down, you know." I slipped the invitation back into its envelope and set it on the counter. Part of me wanted to ignore it, just pretend it never came. But I knew that wouldn't happen. The next evening, Mom called. "Did you get Colin's invitation?" Her tone wasn't cheerful. It was expectant, like she was checking off a box on her to-do list. "Yeah, I got it," I said, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Good. This is going to be a very important event for our family, Daniel. Everyone will be there. Your aunts, your cousins. Don't be late. And bring someone if you can. It'll be nice to see you with a date for once." I laughed, but it came out sharper than I meant. "You know I'm single, Mom. You don't have to rub it in." "I'm not rubbing anything in," she said quickly. "It's just appearances matter. Anyway, April has a small favor to ask. She thinks you'd be perfect for it." I felt my stomach tighten. "What favor?" "Well," she began, her voice turning overly sweet. "April thought it would be lovely to have a highlight reel for the post-dinner toast. You know, a cute video showing Colin's journey. Baby pictures, childhood clips, college parties. Something sentimental. You're good with computers, so we thought you could put it together. You'll do a better job than anyone else." There it was. Another task, dressed up as a compliment. "Does April want me to make this video?" I asked. Yes, Mom said, almost exasperated. She's counting on you. It's a big deal, Daniel. Don't let us down. I swallowed whatever sarcastic comment was about to escape. Fine, I'll do it. Thank you, sweetheart. This means a lot to all of us, she said, but the warmth in her voice was reserved for the mention of Colin's name, not mine. That night, I dug out old hard drives, thumbed through childhood photos, and opened folders of archived home videos. My apartment was quiet except for the hum of my laptop. Every clip I clicked through stirred something in me. Not nostalgia exactly, but something sharper. Maybe, I thought, this video could be more than just a tribute. The first night I started editing, I told myself I'd keep it simple. A cheerful montage of Colin's life, a few upbeat songs, some clips of family vacations and birthdays. Nothing complicated. I pulled up the oldest home videos first. Dad was holding the camcorder, narrating everything like he was documenting history. There's my boy, Colin. Look at him go. The camera zoomed in on a toddler version of my brother, chubby cheeks smeared with birthday cake. I was in the background, maybe 6 years old, handing Colin a toy truck. Dad's voice never acknowledged me. I clicked through clip after clip, and the pattern started to sink in. Whenever Colin was in frame, there were cheers, laughter, a running commentary about how smart or funny he was. When I showed up, the tone shifted, if I was mentioned at all. One video hit me hard. It was Christmas morning. I must have been around 12. I was opening a sketchbook I'd begged for all year. My mom's voice on the tape. Oh, that's nice, honey. Then the camera panned to Colin unwrapping a remote control car, and suddenly the room erupted like a stadium. Dad shouted, "Now that's a gift." I sat there on the carpet, smiling awkwardly, like I was trying not to notice the difference. By the third night of editing, I wasn't smiling anymore. I started scrubbing through the digital archives, group photos, family gatherings, even old social media clips. In every single one, Colin was the star. Me? I was often cut off at the edges, or standing just far enough away to look like an afterthought. It wasn't just the images. The audio was worse. I found a clip from a backyard barbecue when I was in high school. I had just told my dad I got accepted into a coding camp. On the video, you can hear him chuckle. Daniel? With computers? Well, I guess that's something. Then, seconds later, he's bragging about how Colin sold 5 houses that summer, even though those houses were just listings from Dad's buddy. The deeper I went, the more I saw this invisible wall they'd built between us. They didn't even know they were doing it. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. Then I found it. In one of my old chat backups, there was a video from a group FaceTime call last year. I almost deleted it without watching, thinking it was just family chatter. But curiosity got the better of me. The screen lit up with April's face, Colin's fiancée, slightly tipsy, holding a wine glass. She was talking to my mom and a couple of cousins, not realizing I'd been added to the call but hadn't unmuted. April laughed, rolling her eyes. Colin is great, don't get me wrong. He's rich and easygoing. But love? I mean, not like love. He's just easy. After dealing with Daniel's pity party energy growing up, I deserve someone who doesn't drain me. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Pity party energy. That's what she saw when she looked at me. A ghost in the background, irrelevant even in my own family story. That night, I stopped editing the video the way April wanted. I didn't delete the sweet clips. I kept the smiling baby footage, the birthdays, the vacations. But I also started weaving in the moments they'd rather forget. The quiet cuts, the mockery, the times they erased me. If they wanted a highlight reel, I was going to give them one, just not the one they expected. The ski resort looked like something out of a movie. All polished wood, warm lighting, and the faint smell of pine and expensive cologne. I arrived alone, carrying my overnight bag and wearing the one decent suit I owned. As I checked in, I overheard my mother's voice at the reception desk, bright and enthusiastic, telling the clerk she was with the family of the groom. She didn't see me, and I didn't bother to say hello. The dining hall was massive, decorated with white roses and gold runners. The tables near the front had name cards for the main guests, all lined up like royalty. I found my name at the far end of the room, a small round table tucked near the kitchen doors, half blocked by a cart of dirty dishes. My table mates? A few elderly relatives I barely recognized, and some random plus ones who looked just as lost as I felt. I sat down and tried to act like it didn't sting. But it did. Every time a waiter pushed through the kitchen doors, I had to scoot my chair out of the way. Every time I glanced toward the front, I saw Colin holding court, laughing with April, their hands intertwined like they were the stars of some reality show. Then Colin spotted me. He raised his glass, smirked, and called out loudly enough for the nearest tables to hear. "There's my brother, Daniel. Always on the sidelines, huh?" Laughter rippled around the room. I felt my face heat up, but I didn't respond. I just forced a polite smile and took a sip of water. I'd learned a long time ago that arguing only gave them more ammunition. From my table, I had a clear view of my parents. They were leaning in toward April, hanging on her every word. Mom kept touching April's arm, smiling like she'd already been waiting her whole life for this new daughter-in-law. I didn't eat much. The food was good, perfectly roasted lamb, truffle potatoes, but my stomach was too knotted to enjoy it. Instead, I watched. I watched April pose for photos with her hand perfectly angled to show off her engagement ring. I watched Dad laugh at every single joke Colin cracked, no matter how unfunny. The AV technician wheeled in the projector and screen after dessert. I recognized him immediately. Matt, an old college buddy I hadn't seen in years. We made brief eye contact, and he gave me the kind of nod that says, "You good?" I nodded back. He had the file I'd sent him that morning. As champagne was poured and the lights dimmed, April stood, glowing under the spotlight. She held her glass high, her smile wide and practiced. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate our love," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of confidence that came from always being adored. I sat there in the shadows at the back, my hands folded on the table. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't nervous. For once, I felt completely steady. The fuse was lit. The screen lit up with the opening scene. Colin as a baby, bundled in a blue blanket, gurgling at the camera. The crowd collectively melted. April clutched Colin's arm, smiling like she was already the queen of this castle. Soft piano music played while clips rolled of Colin's childhood, him running through sprinklers, winning a middle school spelling bee, blowing out candles at his 16th birthday. Every so often, the video would cut to me in the background, handing him a toy, clapping at his performance. But the focus never lingered. Just like real life. For the first minute, I let them bask in it. I wanted them leaning forward, drinking in the nostalgia. Then the tone shifted. The music slowed and lowered in pitch, not obvious enough to alarm them at first, but enough to change the mood. A clip appeared of me holding a science fair ribbon, smiling. Off camera, Dad's voice cut through. "Daniel's projects are cute, but Colin, he's a natural salesman. That's where the real success is." There was an awkward ripple of laughter from the crowd, uncertain and forced. The next scene was a montage of family dinners. Colin recounting some mediocre success story while everyone cheered, then quick cuts of me quietly clearing plates, barely acknowledged. I added captions in small, white text at the bottom. "Daniel, age 15, wins district coding competition, no mention." Colin sells 2 bikes on Craigslist. Entire table applauds. By the third clip, the room had stopped laughing. I cut in footage from that backyard barbecue I'd found, where Dad brushed off my coding camp acceptance. His voice filled the speakers. "Daniel? With computers? Well, I guess that's something." The video froze on my teenage face, smiling politely like I hadn't just been dismissed. Then came the real hit. The screen flickered to April's drunken FaceTime rant. Her voice was slurred but clear. "I don't love Colin, love him. But the guy's loaded and easy. After dealing with Daniel's pity party energy growing up, I deserve this." You could hear a pin drop. April's smile cracked. She stood halfway from her chair, her mouth opening like she was about to say it was fake. But she froze when the clip continued, her own laugh spilling from the speakers. The final scene faded in, a black background with a single line of white text. "Some ghosts choose to haunt." The screen went dark. For a full 5 seconds, there was nothing. No music, no clapping, no polite chuckles, just silence. Then I heard someone near the front whisper, "Did she really say that?" April's hands shot up, trembling. That was taken out of context. Colin's face was pale. He didn't say a word. My dad's jaw tightened like he was trying to grind his teeth into dust. Mom looked like someone had unplugged her. I stayed seated, my hands folded, watching. I'd expected anger. I'd expected denial. What I didn't expect was the way the entire room seemed to tilt, like everyone was seeing my family for the first time the way I always had. Matt, the AV guy, glanced over at me from across the room. Our eyes met, and he gave the faintest nod. Job done. The lights came back up. The champagne bubbles had gone flat. And for once, I wasn't invisible. The silence didn't last. It never does. A murmur spread through the room like a slow-moving fire, starting from the front tables where April's friends sat, their perfect smiles replaced by wide-eyed whispers. I saw Colin's best man lean toward him, hand half covering his mouth, probably asking if that clip was real. Colin didn't answer. He just stared at the table like he might be sick. My father stood first. He didn't look at anyone else, just me. "What the hell was that, Daniel?" His voice wasn't loud yet, but it carried. I didn't answer. "I asked you a question," he barked, stepping around the table. "You think this is funny? You think sabotaging your brother's engagement is something to be proud of?" The room quieted again, all eyes flicking between us like they were watching the start of a boxing match. April stood, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. It's obviously some kind of joke, she said, forcing a laugh that died halfway out of her throat. Right, Daniel? You're trying to be funny, right? I stayed seated. That's when one of the guests, some middle-aged guy in a designer suit I didn't recognize, spoke up. Wait, did you actually say all that about Colin? He asked, looking at April. His tone was calm, but there was something sharp underneath it. April's cheeks went crimson. Of course not. I mean, not like that. It was taken out of context. People say stupid things when they're drunk. I raised my eyebrows slightly, but said nothing. Colin finally looked up at me, his face pale and tight. Tell me that wasn't real. I met his eyes. It was real. A ripple went through the crowd, gasps, sharp inhales. April's face crumpled like wet paper. Colin, she started, but he cut her off with a shake of his head. My dad's voice roared over them. You think this is clever? You think this is how a son behaves? After all this family's done for you, this is how you repay us? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was quiet, bitter, and it stopped him mid-step. All this family's done for me, I said softly, just enough for him to hear. Don't you dare. The DJ, who'd been waiting in the corner to start the after-dinner playlist, hesitated with his hand over the equipment. It was like the whole event had been put on hold, waiting to see who would make the next move. Colin shoved back his chair so hard it nearly toppled. Without a word, he walked past April, past my father, and straight out the side door. The cold night air rushed in for a moment before the door swung shut behind him. April scrambled after him, calling his name. The hem of her dress caught on one of the chairs, nearly tripping her. Nobody touched their glasses. Nobody clapped. The father-daughter dance that was supposed to follow canceled without a word. The engagement party was officially over, they just hadn't admitted it yet. For a few seconds after Colin stormed out, no one moved. The room felt frozen, like a still photograph. Then the murmurs started again, low and frantic. A couple of April's friends rushed toward the exit, whispering into their phones. Others just stared at me like I had set the place on fire. My dad's face was a mask of rage. His jaw tightened as he turned to me. You have no idea what you've just done, he said, his voice shaking. Do you feel proud? Ruining your brother's night like this? I stayed seated, my hands resting calmly on the table. I didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. I just showed the truth. My mom stepped forward, her voice trembling. Daniel, for God's sake, can't you just let things go? This was supposed to be a happy night for Colin. Why do you always have to make everything about you? About me? I almost laughed. You've spent my entire life pretending I don't exist unless you need me to do something for Colin. This was never about me. It was always about him. The words landed hard. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone at the next table whispered, he's right, you know. And that was the first time I saw my parents' faces crack with uncertainty. Then Ava, my cousin who'd been watching from the second row, stood up. Honestly, I'm glad someone finally said it, she announced. Her voice carried, drawing attention. We've all seen it. Every family event, every holiday dinner. It's always Colin this, Colin that. Daniel could have won the Nobel Prize, and you'd still brush it off like it was nothing. My dad shot her a sharp look. Ava, this is not your business. It is when you treat family like this, she said, crossing her arms. I remember that Christmas when Daniel brought over his app demo, and you called it a waste of time. That thing's on the App Store now, isn't it? But you wouldn't know because you've never asked. The room went quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. The kind that happens when someone says what everyone else is thinking. I stood up, not fast or angry, just steady. I didn't come here to start a fight. I came because I was invited, and because April asked me to make that video. I did exactly what she asked for. I just didn't edit out the parts you all pretend don't exist. April's name was like a curse word in the room. She wasn't back yet, and people were starting to piece things together. A woman near the front, maybe one of April's relatives, asked, did she really say she doesn't love Colin? No one answered. I walked slowly toward the head table. No one stopped me. My mother's eyes darted around like she was waiting for someone else to intervene, but no one did. I reached the spot where Colin had been sitting and pulled out his chair. For the first time all night, I took a seat at the center. This, I said, my voice clear and calm, isn't about revenge. It's about being seen. For 26 years, I've been in the background. Tonight, I just moved the camera. Nobody spoke. Even my dad didn't seem to have a comeback. He just stood there, jaw working, like he couldn't decide whether to yell or walk away. My mom's lips trembled, but she stayed silent too. For the first time, the room didn't belong to Colin. It belonged to me. I stepped outside after a while, leaving the tense room behind. The night air at the resort was crisp, and the amber deck lights glowed against the snow-dusted railing. I leaned on the wooden banister, breathing deeply, letting the cold sting my face. For the first time that evening, I felt my shoulders relax. The door creaked open behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Colin. His footsteps were heavy, deliberate, crunching against the thin layer of frost on the deck. He stopped a few feet away. "Was that real?" he asked, his voice quiet but strained. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Every clip, every word. I didn't touch the audio. I didn't fake anything." He didn't respond right away. I could hear him breathing, slow and uneven. He rubbed his hands together like he was trying to warm them, but I knew it wasn't just the cold. "April really said all that?" he finally asked. I turned to face him. "You heard it yourself. I don't know what to tell you, Colin. I didn't want to show you like this, but it's better than letting you walk into a marriage built on lies." He stared at the ground, his jaw tight. For once, he didn't have that easy grin he always used to charm people. "You know," he said slowly, "I've had doubts for a while. I thought maybe I was just imagining things. But hearing that, I can't ignore it anymore." I nodded. "I didn't do this to hurt you. Not you. I just couldn't keep being invisible." He looked at me then, and for the first time in years, his expression wasn't smug or dismissive. It was raw. "I guess I never realized how much I took for granted," he said. "How much they all do. I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry." His words caught me off guard. I didn't expect an apology, not from Colin. "I'm not asking for sorry," I said softly. "I just wanted the truth out there. What you do with it now is up to you." He glanced back at the glowing windows of the dining hall. "I'm not going back in there. Not tonight. And I'm definitely not marrying someone who sees me like a paycheck." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets and started walking toward the parking lot. "Take care of yourself, Daniel," he said over his shoulder. "Maybe it's time I start doing the same." I watched as his car headlights flared and disappeared down the mountain road, leaving only the sound of the wind. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the last word, without saying anything at all. When I walked back inside, the dining hall was quieter than I expected. The champagne glasses were still half full, the plates barely touched. The sparkle of the evening had drained out of the room, replaced by uneasy murmurs and sideways glances. April was gone. Colin was gone. And now, all that was left was the fallout. My mother spotted me first. She stood up quickly, her voice sharp and low enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Daniel, what were you thinking? You could have come to us if you felt like this. You didn't have to humiliate the entire family." I stopped a few feet from her table, feeling every pair of eyes on me. "I did come to you," I said quietly. "More times than I can count. You just didn't care enough to listen." Her lips trembled. "That's not fair. We've always loved you." "Loved me?" I interrupted, not raising my voice but cutting her off all the same. "No, you tolerated me. You made sure I knew exactly where I stood compared to Colin. Every single time I accomplished something, you brushed it aside because it didn't look like what he was doing." The words hung there like frost. My father shifted in his seat, his face flushed. "Don't you dare put this all on us," he said, leaning forward. "You just burned every bridge you have with this family." I met his stare without flinching. "You can't burn a bridge that was never built." For a moment, there was nothing. Then my cousin Ava, who had already spoken up once that night, cleared her throat. "Honestly, Daniel's right," she said, her voice firm. "I've watched you all dismiss him for years. He's always been the butt of your jokes, and now you're surprised he's done taking it?" A few of the other cousins nodded. My father's mouth tightened, but he didn't respond. My mother looked like she might cry, but I knew those tears weren't for me. They were for the scene, for the loss of control. I didn't wait for another lecture. I slipped on my jacket, the same one I'd worn when I arrived, and picked up my overnight bag from under the table. "I'm leaving," I said simply. "You can stay here and pretend tonight didn't happen, but I'm done pretending." "Daniel," my mother started, her voice pleading now, "we're family. We can talk this through." I paused by the doorway and looked back at her. Family doesn't erase you just because it's easier. If you want to talk, you know where to find me. But I'm not the kid you get to ignore anymore. And with that, I walked out. Back at the small cabin I'd rented for the weekend, I turned my phone off. I didn't want to see the avalanche of texts I knew would be waiting for me. Messages from my mom, my dad, maybe even April trying to spin what happened. I tossed my bag in the corner, grabbed a glass of water, and stepped out onto the porch. The mountain air was sharp and cold, but it felt clean, real. I sat there for a long time, listening to the wind cutting through the trees. No voices, no judgment, just quiet. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not vindicated exactly, just visible. Like I'd finally stopped letting their approval dictate who I was supposed to be. The stars glimmered above, cold and distant, and I breathed in deeply. Whatever happened next with my family, whether they called, begged, or blamed me, didn't matter anymore. I had chosen myself, and I wasn't going back.